Productive Dentist Academy podcast network.
It essentially acts as a marketing arm for you. So when you are no longer in network, you've got to think about things from a different angle. Thanks for tuning into the Everyday Practices Dental Podcast. I'm Regan Robertson. My co-host Sara Hansen and I interview real dentists and experts who grow their dental practices using authentic marketing in a way that you can remember, repeat, and use in your own practice to get the patients you deserve. Let's dive in. Doctor, are you ready to go out of network? You're ready to take the step, but you're not sure if you're prepared, especially if your marketing is prepared. If so, this episode is totally for you. My co-host, Sara Hansen, just presented in front of 200 doctors the other day, giving the presentation about volume versus value, how to be thriving in a practice that is going out of network. Sara, I am super excited to dive into this topic with you.
Hey, Reagan, me too. I have been hearing, I mean, and I'm sure you hear it too, but we're hearing in the industry, should I go out a network? Is it time? And this is why we kind of developed some of these strategies to talk about with doctors so we can start having the conversations with them.
Well, I mean, I've been present for, I've seen firsthand doctors who just go all out. So if you're just thinking about pulling the trigger and going completely fee for service, I've seen the results of that. And it falls in two ways. Those that are prepared, and I mean like months long prepared, usually have a far greater chance of succeeding in that fee for service endeavor versus the ones that don't. But there's a big gray area in between that. It's not necessarily an all or none situation. And as, Productive Dentist Academy CEO Victoria Peterson says, PPOs are not inherently evil. Like there is a strategy to crafting that revenue mix in your practice. But for you and me, let's focus on the marketing element of that, especially because, that's what insurance, it essentially acts as a marketing arm for you. So when you are no longer in network, you've got to think about things from a different angle. Tell me a little bit about the strategy and how you approach it, in the practices that you're helping go through this transition.
Yeah. Well, first of all, doctors, you might be a little surprised to know that we encourage an 18 to 24-month runway to do this successfully with the least amount of attrition. It's not a today we decide that we want to go out and network and tomorrow it's happening, right? You really need to have a strategy. And so Reagan, I'd love to walk you through some of those pieces that we implement with doctors on how do we do this successfully? Because I know it is very scary for doctors to make that transition because again, if they look at the numbers, so again, that's one of the pieces, doctor, that I would tell you in the very beginning. One is look at the numbers within your practice software. How many patients do you have per insurance? Understanding that data will help you understand the biggest impact. And at that time, if you have a lot of patients on a particular network, maybe Delta, I know is a big one, but maybe through Blue Cross Blue Shield is smaller, start with the smaller ones first. Get your feet wet, get the language shifting for the team. You don't have to dive right into dropping everything all at once. We can do this in baby steps.
Well, baby steps is really good. And I don't know if it's shocking if an 18 to 24-month timeline feels shocking or not. I can think of some dentists who they plan that far out. And so it's not an issue. But there are others that are, more impulsive and in the moment. And when they're ready to go, they're ready to go.
They're ready.
So what are some of the steps at that beginning phase? Like you're saying, okay, perfect world scenario. You've got the 18 months. Where do we start?
Yeah. First, again, identify your patient mix. So you want to know how many are already unrestricted with you. They're coming with you because they already love you. And then the other piece is then identify how many are on specific insurances. Also look at the reimbursement rates because sometimes we are not an all or nothing type of strategy. Sometimes it makes sense to still be in network with specific insurance companies, right? If the reimbursement rates are reasonable to your practice, then, and everything seems to be functioning okay, it's okay not to transition off all the way. So again, I think every strategy looks different for every practice based on the practice goals. So understanding first how many patients will be affected. I put that in quotations, affected, right? Meaning those are the patients you're going to have to start conversations with. The reason why we like to say 18 months is that gives the patient 3 opportunities to hear from you and your team why you are changing your relationship with the with the insurance companies. Because what happens is the moment that you tell an insurance company that you are now going to be unrestricted with them, they then immediately will send a letter to the patient saying it's very fearful for them, saying your provider can no longer see you, they are out of network, you need to find a new provider, and oftentimes they will even send them other dentists to see. So what you want to do is get ahead of that, right? And by having those 3 recare cycles where you can start planting the seeds, having the conversation with those patients, because going out of network is really an educational campaign to our patients. It's helping them understand what does it mean to go out of network and how does that affect them.
Ooh, okay. So let's talk about this from the marketing channel. I'm the
Yeah.
cost gal. So from
Yeah.
communication standpoint, I love that you called out 3 recare cycles. So
Mhm.
there's multiple opportunities in practice. Um, what are some of the do you start to announce this internally first before you start to even alert the patients? And then
Yes.
can you take that through the through line with me? So thinking about all the marketing tactics available, internal and external, uh,
Mhm.
can you be my eyes and ears and walk me through how
Yeah.
you guide that? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So, doctor, let's say you're really starting to think about you want to go out of network. You've looked at maybe some of the metrics in the practice. First and foremost, we've got to get the team on board. This is an all hands on deck type of strategy in the practice. Again, the conversations are going to be happening with team members, but also you need them to be on board with what this looks like, how it's going to look and feel. You want to make sure that you have implemented either a membership plan in your practice, maybe financial solutions through third party companies, right? Where it allows the patient to make payments. Again, you want to have those other options available so that the patient now has options instead of just paying either full fees or, things like that. So again, this is where so much of how do I say this preparation work kind of goes into making that decision. Once the decision is made, yeah, let's get the team on board. How does that look and feel for each of them? What do those conversations sound like? And then what I recommend doing to teams is start by shifting your language with the patient. So, and we can dive deeper into this too. But when we talk about language shifting, it is so crucial for our team to understand how to properly communicate to our patients by using the words, what does your insurance contribute instead of covers? Things like that. And if we start talking to the patient,
Contribute is so much more accurate.
right? If
Right.
they're
Yeah.
not covering anything, I mean,
Right.
let's be
I mean, I'm
honest.
laughing at that because 'cause I'm thinking about, some estimates that I've seen, and I thought, "Oh, so it doesn't really cover, the term
No.
cover." Yeah.
No, it doesn't, and, like, it's so funny. I mean, I've been in dentistry since, like, 1999, and, at that time, I believe maximum out of pocket that the insurance covers was 1,000 or 1,500, right? Well, guess what? It's 2026, and they are still only maximum covering, if you will, 1,000 to $1,500. I mean, this is way too long that we have had really no support for our patients when it comes to insurance, right?
Mm.
And so really starting to shift that language with the patients early on, using that terminology in the practice when you talk to a patient about their current insurance benefits, right? What does your insurance contribute to your dental treatment? That now sounds exactly what it should be instead of covers. When we use the term covers, it's like, oh, well, they should take care of all of this. Oh, and if they don't cover it, right? It is kind of that like negative, um, conversation towards the insurance where we have to call it out for what it is. Then that way, whether you're, unrestricted or in network, then you still have that same conversation of what does your insurance contribute? Because either way, even if you're out of network, they're still going to contribute something, right? So again, that conversation never changes regardless of your relationship with insurance companies.
So when we switched over into marketing and we've got this lovely runway, how much
Mhm.
budget should a practice, say a solo practice, contribute to its marketing budget so that it can understand that that's what they're going to be responsible for themselves in gaining the fee for service patient?
Yeah, I would recommend a lot of your budget goes towards team training. That is going to be your make or break. I will tell you. If the team is aligned, they understand the verbiage, they understand how to talk to patients, they understand how to talk about the membership plans, the benefits to the patient, right? All of those conversations will now guide the patient into what they should be doing. I will tell you, Reagan, it was kind of heartbreaking today. I was listening to some phone calls from a client, and they're trying to figure out, where there is some breakdowns in the practice. And so I was listening to some recorded calls, and this particular office is in network with 2 insurances. However, the conversations that I heard from the admin team was really heartbreaking because a patient would call and say, "Hey, I'm a new patient. I'm looking to have a specific service done. Do you take Blue Cross Blue Shield," right? Or whatever it is. And the admin team would instantly say, "Well, we're out of network with them." And the patient will say, "Well, what does that mean?" "Well, it means that you're gonna have to pay out of pocket." And that literally was the conversation. And I was like, "Oh my gosh," like, there was so much more to that conversation because at one point, the patient even said, "Well, I'm happy to pay out of pocket, if I know that this is the right treatment." And yet that was never offered, meaning it was never offered, "Why don't you come in and talk to our doctor? Let's get you in for a consultation. Let's see what this will actually be so that, it sounds like finances are important to you. We want to make sure that we are maximizing everything that your insurance contributes to any dental treatment that you may need." Right? This is a bigger conversation that we'd love to sit down and spend time with you. So again, and then what happened is the patient hung up and called another practice. So investing in your team is crucial to having, again, the max amount of patients not leave the practice, but also as you have new patients finding you, that those conversations are now resonating to the patient. So when I said that this really is an educational campaign, we're not only educating our patients, but we're educating our team members on what it sounds like to have really great conversations with our patients in regards to being unrestricted with insurances.
I love that you call it an education campaign, and my
Mhm.
mind immediately went into implementation. And so there's that. How do we define investing in our team? So what I heard was, making sure that they have that education around them. So Sarah, what does this look like? It looks like to me that means you are setting aside a certain amount of hours per month to work with the team,
Yes.
be it a lunch or a meeting or whatever. So that could mean losing some practice hours, in addition to the regular meetings that you have in place. I'm also assuming that it could mean bringing in a coach that can work with you, or a marketing agency that can work with you that specifically focuses on the team education training part. What am I missing? What else do you slot into the team training budget?
I would put in the team training budget, looking at those internal marketing systems as well. So, do you have the internal systems to execute really great referral programs? Are we, reaching out to those patients that have quietly disappeared, right, through a re-engagement program? Again, what you're trying to do with not only that educational piece with the team and the patients is we want to prepare. So we want to get ready for maybe some attrition. So we want to create volume before we have it. Right. So, what we're doing is we are creating systems internally that are going to help boost up the volume of the practice. It already is a really great, valuable way to grow our practice. So, whether you're going out of network or not, it's still great systems to have regardless. But what we're trying to do now is build up those internal systems to help create for that lack of volume that could potentially happen. Now, doctors, if you're currently writing off 30, 40% from insurance companies, and even if 20% of your patient base left tomorrow, you're still coming out ahead, right? When we kind of look at the math that way. But again, we want to make sure that we're creating the value in the practice that will help grow the practice organically, but also in a way that we're not reliant on insurance companies as that marketing directory, which is basically all insurance companies are for doctors.
Did you mention software in there also?
Yeah.
What types of software might a practice already have in place and not be optimizing it?
Yeah. So, teams, if you have dental intelligence, practice by numbers, any of those that really will pull the analytics of the practice, it will give you those metrics. It can tell you how many patients are part of each insurance plan. What is the percentage of patients that are unrestricted right now with you? How much production are you getting? Also, it's really important that you're tracking the referral sources. If we're working on internal metrics for referrals, we want to make sure that 10% of those hygiene appointments. So let me give you some fun math, doctors. If let's say you see 200 hygiene patients a month, we would hope that 10% of that, so 20 new patients the next month are coming in from other patients. So again, there's metrics that you can be monitoring and analyzing and growing if you utilize that practice software that you already have. So there's a lot of great resources for teams to start looking at the data. You never want to make this transition with your practice based on emotions. You want to make sure that that data tells that story of, okay, whoa, we have a lot of patients that are coming in from this insurance. We know we're writing off a lot. Doctors' costs are going up, overheads going up, labs going up. And unfortunately, the reimbursement rates are not going up. So again, doctors are now in this hard spot of, is it time? And so that's where we want to provide those resources for the doctor and the team and say, hey, like, we know this is a big shift. Here's what we recommend.
So the name of the game is replacing demand before removing it.
Exactly,
Uh,
exactly.
I'm so in love with the data elements of it. So the metrics that you should be tracking and understanding what you're going to have to replace. Focusing on the internal, brilliant, obviously. I mean,
Yep,
obviously, this is what we're always excited about. Let's
yep.
look over into the external pieces of this.
Yeah.
So, so if you are making a pretty big shift, I can imagine, that there's a lot of marketing that hasn't been looked on, externally hasn't been paid attention to as much. So from your perspective, what can doctors expect and what should be a benchmark for the external campaigns so that, it can boost up replace the demand essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, if we're tracking referral sources, that gives us really great understanding of where are our new patients coming from. So if we have, 80% of our new patients a month are coming from their insurance provider because they heard about us, on the directory, then we want to make that up through other external marketing. So, again, I always recommend when it comes to external marketing, you do not need to say, hey, we're out of network, right? And guess what, doctors? Even if you are, you can still say, we accept and work with many insurance companies. We're happy to still bill your insurance as a courtesy. We're happy to, figure out what your insurance contributes towards your dental treatment. So you can still talk about those sorts of things within your external marketing. You don't now have to remove all of that language from any external marketing pieces. Again, it's the way that we talk about it. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky is patients will say, well, wait, you said that you bill my insurance. And the teams, they don't understand the difference. So again, it is very important that your team understands when they're talking to a patient that they're explaining to them what unrestricted means and how it's a patient benefit. We teach teams that they talk about, did you know that your insurance actually dictates what's best for your health? And can you believe that, Mrs. Jones, that someone who doesn't even know you, has never looked inside your mouth, who doesn't know your medical history, is making decisions about you? Isn't it great that us being an unrestricted provider, now we get to make that decision together? So it's conversations like that that we just have to teach our patients what it means, because they're so hyper focused on, well, I have to go in network because that's what my insurance says. So it's flipping the script and really telling the patients why it's a benefit for them to now have control over their, oral health and the decisions. Like, it should be a conversation between you and your doctor. And yet with dentistry, we don't treat it that way. So it's interesting.
I like that you said unrestricted. I know we have an event coming up September called Unrestricted, the end of PP
Yep.
independence, and marketing is going to be a big topic. So you will be
Yeah.
at the speaker there. Can you share with our listeners a little bit about what you'll be speaking on with that coming up in September?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that we want to bring to that event is, how do we support the doctors and the teams, right, with this decision? So, my goal with all of that is really giving away the takeaways. So when you come to that event, what we want for you is, one, to understand, how is this going to work and what's the strategy involved? And then what are those support pieces, the tangible pieces that you can take away, take it back to your practice and say, all right, we got this. We're going to make this happen, and, help you be successful through all of that. There are so many support pieces that go in with this, right? Making sure that even doctors have membership plans, and getting them in touch with the right companies, things like that. So, again, anything from what can we help support you with internally, and here's the guide for that, to, external pieces. We like to do more of like checklist style of, hey, these are the things that we want to make sure that we're hitting at specific times. This is what it sounds like. So, those tangible pieces are what I will be talking about in September.
Sweet. I love that you said checklist. I think you have right now on the Phoenix website a
I
checklist.
I do.
Shoot. Okay, where do
Yeah.
they go and what is it called?
Yeah. Yeah, so Phoenix, yeah, if you go to phoenixdentalagency.com, it will be the first thing that pops up. It's a free downloadable guide that you can all have, where, again, it just walks you through what to look at, what's first, what's second, what things do you want to start addressing earlier rather than later, why those things are important. And if any of that language is kind of speaking to you and you're like, hey, I really want to know more, we are looking at making this shift in our practice. Again, that's why we're offering the on site event, for doctors and one decision maker. So, whether that's a partner, an office manager, but again, we want to make sure that you all have the tools, that if you're going to make this transition, that you do it correctly and that you do it strategically. I think that's the key when looking at making those shifts in the practice, is just doing it strategically. So it makes sense, and that you can replace everything that you've been having with something even better.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, you have this thing. Go over to phoenixdentalagency.com, grab that going out of network checklist. It'll be great. If you're considering this, congratulations. We're excited for you as you design your new revenue mix. And I hope that these tips are helpful to you. So, those that plan succeed, I know you might really want to do it before you pull that trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's some pieces to help educate you and prepare you. Thank you, Sarah. Anything that I didn't
Yeah.
ask that you wanted to add?
No, again, doctors, don't fear this transition. So again, this is about doing it the right way. If it makes sense for you, you have resources and we can help you find those resources. But don't hold back. That's what we hear a lot, is the doctors get really fearful, as to be expected. So doctors, don't be afraid. We can help you with this, or we can get you in touch with the resources that you need to help make this successful for you.
Well, thank you, Sarah. And
Yeah.
doctors, good luck replacing your demand before you remove it. Hey, thanks for joining us on Everyday Practices Dental Podcast. It would mean the world to me if you could leave us a like or a review on iTunes or go to Productive Dentist Academy through Google and leave us a review there. We are here each week to talk about what's possible when you leave your practice with clarity and courage. If you are ready to build a business that supports your life and not the other way around, investment grade practice coaching powered by Productive Dentist Academy can help. Visit investmentgradepractice.com to schedule your free 60-minute coaching session so you can start designing the practice and lifestyle you've been dreaming about all along.